Oh, hello there. Welcome to This Week in Mormons. I'm Jeff. I can't do it for the whole show. Anyway, hi, everyone. Welcome to the show. This Week in Mormons. Jeff Openshaw here, your founder. Very happy to be here with all of you this week. Please go to thisweekinmormons.com. Find us on social media. The big hitters, primarily, but not TikTok, because what am I going to do on TikTok that's pertaining to this show? I don't even know what it would be. Just videos of me going like this? Just like rocking back and forth with my headphones? I don't know what it would be, Kurt. I'm terrible at this. But anyways, and if you haven't subscribed to this show, please do right now. Hit that subscribe button. Wherever you are, hit it right now. Do that. That would be cool of you. The person over there making onomatopoeia is none other than great friend of the show and just a very nice person.
Oh, go on, Jeff.
Of Leading Saints, Kurt Frankham is here. What's up, buddy?
Yes, and I will be doing a Utah accent for the entire episode today.
Can you dial that in like effortlessly? Because I'd actually be all for that.
Well, I tend to leave out my T's at times when I go to the Leighton Temple before I go hunting for milk on my pillow.
Pillow is one of my. See, yeah. It's funny how little isms like that can translate. Because my wife was born and raised in San Diego. Her dad was born in Salina, Central Utah, right? But it only as like a kid. Then he moved to Southern California. But he says words like milk, for example.
Milk. Mm-hmm.
And my wife picked up on that. She lived in Utah for basically school and a little bit more. But she says milk today, not being a Utahn herself. But It's funny how things like that. Yeah, it's funny. I think it's so interesting how we can like carry things like that across generations, even outside of the area, right? It's So
Jeff, you the holidays are coming. What are you guys doing for Thanksgiving?
Probably going to see family in Charlottesville.
Yeah,
that's usually our jam. So we
is it you have a sister there, or what? I forget.
I've got a sister-in-law. My wife's sister lives down there.
Oh, okay.
And I've got a cousin down there as well, and her kids. So
and how long does that drive?
Usually about hour 45, I would say,
nice.
On average. Take the highway down there, hang out, stay the night. Should be good. I'm unlike in many years past, I actually have Friday off, so I'm just gonna party the whole weekend. It's going to be
And any particular, like, are you a snob when it comes to certain Thanksgiving foods? Or,
I'm a snob when it comes to most things, as you know.
Right, and that's why I bring it up, Jeff.
Just in general. Am I a snob with Thanksgiving food? I don't think so, no. I appreciate a nice meal, However, we're not usually tasked with turkey or anything like that.
Yeah,
but
why would they trust you with such a tall order?
Because I'd do a dynamite job with it. Mostly because I'm not hosting. And basically whoever hosts has to do the turkey. You don't want someone to cook a turkey and then transport it an hour and a half to your house.
Right.
That doesn't do the job. So
there's nothing though, like a go-to yams recipe or...
Well, no, there's some. My wife will make sweet potato casserole, whatever you call. I don't know if it's casserole. The kind that's like loaded with sugar. It's essentially a dessert. It's got toasted
marshmallows,
pecans, and sometimes marshmallows, whatever those kinds of things. Mm-hmm. She makes a very good version of that, and I greatly look forward to that. I'm sure we will have some delicious turkey. I'm a very good mashed potato maker, so I imagine I will be put to work.
Nice.
Making some roasted garlic mashed potatoes, maybe. Probably do that.
Ooh. I'm intrigued.
Do you roast your own garlic, Kurt?
I think we have at one point in my.
Most people do all the time, right? Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Oh, it's the best. You cut off a little bit of the head, wrap it in foil, drizzle it with some EVOO, as the great Rachel Ray would say, and then just. I go low and slow, 300 degrees for 1 hour, then turn off the heat and leave it in there, and let it do some carryover for a bit. Try it, everyone. I mean, everyone's oven is different, but. You can spread that on toast, or you can take all of them and put them into some mashed potatoes. And it
sounds like we need a special YouTube video on the Twim site about Jeff's Thanksgiving favorites.
I don't think anyone would. Why? We've established it already.
Your people demand it, Jeff.
Old California friends would know my famous garlic bread. That was a whole other thing. I never liked garlic bread, right? When you get it at a restaurant or whatever, and it's really crusty and dry. They call it garlic bread, but it's basically just like some kind of Italian loaf that's been sliced into a little slice, and the top of it's all crunchy. No, I think it should be soft and delicious. So I had this dynamite concoction that I made up, slice the whole loaf up, then cram it back together, and then drizzle it all over the top and wrap it in foil and put it in the oven, and it becomes this high-calorie garlic bomb. That is outstanding.
It's mostly butter, but there's some bread in there.
There's a lot of stuff in it. It is there's a lot of. I haven't made it for years. There's a lot going on in that bread.
Nice.
It is something very special.
Nice.
Anyway, holidays should be fun. Then Christmas, it'll just be Christmas.
Yeah.
It's just Christmas. It's just celebrating the birth of our Savior. It's just
right. It's beautiful.
I'm curious how it'll be here because obviously the DC Temple's been closed for years. They've still done the Festival of Lights, but this year they can't, not because of the rededication that's finally coming next year, but because they're doing road work on the roads around the neighborhood and the temple, and they just can't feasibly have an event like that when the roads are all under construction. So it's not happening this year. No Festival of Lights, bit of a bummer, but we're trying to figure out what that means elsewhere for Christmas festivities.
Yeah, you gotta take your boys somewhere, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
Do you make sure they get a Santa visit of some type, like the pictures and sitting on his lap? Is that
I don't think I'm
must?
gonna have my kids sit on any strangers' laps in this current environment.
Hey.
I'm avoiding random touch as much as I can still. I mean, just to be smart, or random breathing more. Like I think we've kind of gotten past the touch fears, but just the breathing, right?
The breathing thing. Yeah.
The people,
okay.
the breathing. So I don't think we're going to do that. And even if we have a ward Christmas party, Santa has been verboten. I almost said verboten, the roller coaster, verboten at our ward Christmas parties because there is a very vocal minority who is anti-Santa and does not want him at an event. I've brought this up before on the show. I think I have, and I'd love to hear from the listeners if, like, do you experience this? It's one thing if you just don't do Santa because it's like, nah, like we're focusing on the Savior, we're not doing Santa. It's another when there's people who militantly say, no, we don't believe in Santa. We don't teach our kids about Santa.
Right.
And we don't want that at a ward party. Yeah. That's what I've seen.
They make the other kids in primary cry and,
Which is, that's, to me, it's mostly interesting. But I've even been in a meeting once. Somebody was speaking once at church, I think. And you could hear some kid go, Mom, is that the one who you said tells their kids Santa's not real? And you hear these parents just go, shh.
Please.
I think that happened, if memory serves. I don't know. Anyways, I've talked a lot about me, though. Yeah, so it's going to be great. Holidays are good. Virginia's pretty in the fall. It's fun. And how are you doing? What's going on up there?
Well, here, it's extremely warm. It felt like April out there today, but rumor has it's going to cool off. But so I've been enjoying the fall so far, and put a fence in my yard, and I'm just feeling very manly that I'm doing such tasks, providing for my family, keeping the wolves out of my yard, as I like to think. And but we're good here. Just looking forward to the holidays, and day to day, just trying to solve the world's problems through Leading Saints. So
how is Leading Saints? What's going on? Any new summits? Anything's going on? Or do you quiet up for the fall and let people enjoy the holiday?
So one thing that's like, because you're probably going to post this tomorrow, which would be Tuesday, right?
That would be the hope.
That'd be the hope. We'll see how this goes the rest of the show.
We'll touch and go, but yeah.
But so tomorrow night, so Tuesday night, we're I went through this program called 3 Practices, and it's like this. Have you heard of this?
Yeah, AA. Yeah, sure.
AA? No, it's not AA. No, see, this is
what's the stage when you apologize for having wronged me?
No. Jeff, that's Alcohol's Anonymous. This is 3 Practices.
Is this some kind of Stephen R. Covey cult? Is that what this is?
No.
Okay.
Tell
me more.
It is not.
Or should I just keep guessing?
Oh my gosh. I'll send you a TED Talk, Jeff, that gives you more information. But basically it's a method of getting people together and talking about really difficult things so that individuals feel heard. Okay. So I'll send you the link, Jeff, but people should join.
That too. I hope you say it like that when it starts. So people feel heard, okay? You whiners. All right.
Anyway,
that's good for you because I know you care a lot about people being heard. That's something like I know that's part of your ethos.
I can't tell if you're being sarcastic.
No, I'm serious. I think that's good. Like that plays to your strength. That's good.
That's right. So, I mean, do you know David Ostler? He's we'll be co-facilitating this effort tomorrow.
As a side note, I'm assuming is he not related to Richard Ostler? Because I think there's a lot of prominent.
Richard's brother. Yeah,
because I feel like there's a handful of prominent Ostlers, and none of them are related. So that's good. I'm glad to see.
Yeah, they're related. David Ostler wrote the book Bridges. If you haven't read Bridges, go to your local church bookstore and read that book. Anyway, so we're doing.
This is Kurt assuming everyone has church bookstores nearby. Folks, just buy it
come
wherever
on,
you can get
or
books.
go to Amazon and get it in 2 days. So, so this one's going to be all about. Let's see,
Ministering to Those Who Question. Huh? That's the book?
Yeah,
by David
just
Austin.
about like people's experience at church and whether they feel included and whatnot. I wish I had the exact title in front of me, but anyways, it'll be good.
That sounds cool.
I'll give you the link so people can check it out. And then our next virtual summit is Young Saints, where we're talking about leading the rising generation, how to, the dynamics of leading youth. And so,
are you actually going to get youth involved? Is this going to be is this a new thing? Like, I don't know of any youth programming you've done before, so I'm curious if you're actually going to have.
So I'm making sure we have many youth on the agenda who will be presenting and speaking. It'd be cool. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, I'm excited about it. So that's what's going on here in Leading Saints world.
And in the world of Utah. And by the way, don't feel bad for saying Leighton. I say Leighton. It sounds normal. Leighton.
No, I'm training myself out of it.
I don't say Leighton or Leighton. I go to the mountain. I don't know. Maybe I'm partially Utah as well. I don't know. Leighton mountain. It's normal. But I don't say hunting. I definitely say I'm going hunting. To be clear, I've never said I'm going hunting, but if I were to say those words,
other than when you're just wanting to demonstrate how you say hunting,
I would I would say hunting. I would say I'm not super into hunting. That's what I would say.
There's a good, that fits.
By the way, quick follow up from our show about 2 weeks ago. We brought up for some. I don't remember all the context already because these shows leave my mind after about a day because there's been way too many of them. But we were speaking about vasectomies and how. They used to be not the handbook apparently used to not just it said you had to like counsel with your bishop before getting one, not that you just should. It's a prayerful thing you need to do yourself. It's like, no, you need to like talk to your bishop before you get that. So I asked the listener base if anybody had done that. I actually received a number of emails in response. Many men who have had vasectomies, and I'll spare everyone's identity, but I thought it was pretty funny because some were like, yeah, I was in bishopric meeting, we were talking about stuff, and like basically like first counselor says like, oh yeah, I had mine a couple years ago, the bishop's like, best money I ever spent, and you're going down the line. I think they're more common than we might assume for something that has been perhaps more taboo. And not a single person told me they counseled with their bishop before getting one. That's what I thought was interesting.
Yeah, and that's been taken out, right? Like,
it's fine now, but I'm assuming all these happened before that change in the handbook happened. So all of you who got vasectomies at that time, you were sinning because you were not.
Yeah, and you should call your bishop.
Mm-hmm. Repent for that.
And talk to him about it now.
Wouldn't that be the greatest conversation? So I really want to talk about something that's been weighing on my mind for the past few years. And I had a vasectomy. So we got some random news this week.
Random is right, Jeff.
We always say that, and yet we still have a grand time. I don't even know where to start, though. I mean, is there anything you're most passionate about?
You want to start with the heavy hitter, President Oaks, going to University of Virginia.
Is that what we want to start with?
That's right. He went there and says the senior American faith leader said Friday during a landmark address to the University of Virginia that the nation's believers should respect legal efforts to protect people from discrimination as much as they desire to protect religious liberty. And as you've talked about a lot, Jeff, and pointed out, the church, I think that the brethren have talked more and more about religious liberty in general over the last 2 decades or so. And this one sort of had a different flavor or different tone to the address, sort of pointing out that, fairness is still something they want to keep in mind, and they're not looking to alienate a certain group of people in the name of religious liberty.
Well, what I think is interesting here is I think a lot of the time it's come off that like we're trying to navigate LGBTQ rights without like sacrificing it. It never makes it seem like they're at parity necessarily, but he was stressing very much that like, no, like this is people's religious liberty is super important, and also fundamental rights to other people are equally important when we still have work to do. But he was sort of elevating it in that sense to really drive the point home that these are equal issues that matter and we need to talk about them. And he also spent a lot of his remarks, though, really, you could tell he was almost tired of speaking about not religious freedom, but sort of the great divisions we have in our society nowadays. He even took a break in the middle of his remarks, which people were not prepared for. He just kind of said, I'm going to sit down now and let you just stretch your legs, and then we'll keep going in a bit. And I imagine most people in the audience were like, oh, okay. Was not expecting an intermission, but I hope we can keep the drive going. I don't know what that was about, but
yeah, that's interesting.
I think it's excellent he did this. I think a lot of people are kind of surprised. President Oaks has been very interesting the past few years. I think we've all been. I think at the same time, when we go back almost 4 years, and President Nelson was coming in, and President Oaks was first counselor, there were many on the progressive Mormon side who were thinking like, "Ah, geez, this is going to be like a by the book, pretty fundamental like regime." I think it's been anything but that, which has been fascinating to watch, simply regardless of anyone's personal feelings about it. And so President Nelson has proven himself to be very interesting in this regard. But President Oaks as well, who has, as you know, and you've tracked stuff, you've been smart enough to largely get off social media during General Conference, but you know that
Yes.
there's been times when President Oaks has given talks and people are like,
They check out, right?
okay. But lately he's been really just like, you know what I'm going to use my Easter address for, everybody? I'm going to talk about political polarization and tell you to all get your stuff together, because this is
Right.
getting out of hand and you need to figure it out. And he's still really railing on that. And I think he's probably tired of trying to hit the point. But Jana Reese also wrote a piece about this. And before any of you roll your eyes, her piece was mostly like, yeah, Elder Oaks gave some good remarks. They were thoughtful and they seemed to be pretty balanced. I think her only critique, her only one, and this is splitting hairs, I would say, but she said, Oaks charted a path forward for both the advocates of LGBTQ plus equality and those that Oaks called people of faith. And she was like, it only seems like when you frame it that way, as if they're mutually exclusive groups when they're not, which I could understand that. Again, splitting hairs a bit, but you could definitely argue like, well, it's people of faith can also be advocates of the LGBTQ community. It's not like they have completely competing interests. So I thought that was interesting. But she called a lot for he called a lot for the importance of talking to both sides. And here's a good quote, though, I think from Reese, who she says basically she thinks it's become most difficult. These are his words. Elder Oaks talks about it being most difficult because he recognizes how few Latter-day Saints there are actually like listening maybe to some of these words. He's become exhausted by the unprecedented rancor and worried about the tendency of each side to vilify the other. The deafness is on both sides. Many on the left have long since stopped paying attention to the careful distinctions Oaks was trying to make, saying the church has a right to religious freedom in its own teachings and practices, but it's also committed to following the law of the land. Liberals, burned by the church's, these are her words, church's repeated harmful actions towards the LGBTQ community, like Prop 8 in California and the short-lived policy that denied baptism to the children of LGBTQ parents, are not likely to trust the institution or its leaders on those rights anytime soon. Okay. But as she says, and conservatives, drunk with a particular approach to freedom that focuses wholly on the self without any consideration of neighbor or the greater good, aren't listening either. And that's become especially clear during the pandemic, when largely conservative saints in the U.S. have pushed back vociferously against church leaders who advise them to mask up, get vaccinated, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, you do have remarks very clear from Elder Oaks during the Q&A at the end when he was just like, basically on that front, stressing how frustrating it was for him that it's like, why are people looking for medical advice from politicians? Like, why are you doing that? This is just a scientific issue, and we're going to listen to scientists and doctors. And he's like baffled on that front, which I thought was pretty interesting. So, anyway,
I think this is like a good example of how to address an issue like this is polarizing, where you at least kind of let the other side of the issue, the other side of the argument know, hey, I hear you. We're not trying to necessarily get rid of fairness, fundamental fairness altogether. We want you to feel like a good spot, and we want, just our religious liberty and make sure that doesn't become under threat either. So it's a good model.
Here's the quote, by the way. I love this one. So a question came from Judge Tom Griffith, who is someone I probably should know because his name is hyperlinked. And
I have interviewed him, Jeff.
Oh yeah. He's the
he used to be the legal counsel for the Senate or something.
Yeah. And he's been on Biden named him to a Supreme Court commission. So he asked him how we are living in a time of acute political polarization. And President Oaks actually said his quotes were that he, quote, observed that some of our most, and he said, I'm looking for the right word, vexing problems come from mixing science and politics. What I see happening in connection with the masks that we wear, the inoculations that we receive, is a certain number of people who get their direction on matters of science from political authorities. And he said that was something to be warned against. But he said the church leaders have tried to warn our members not to make decisions about vaccinations based off of political loyalties or considerations, but on scientifically provable evidence, not political slogans. And he had acknowledged, he said, we are, as a church, have not always been successful in like pushing this and explaining this, but we're trying. And we are trying to combat the quote unquote false ideas that he says of misinformation online. Anyway, you can watch all of his remarks online. You can find them. I think it's very interesting that he gave these remarks. Maybe he just went to UVA because he wanted to comfort Bronco Mendenhall a little bit.
That's right.
Right?
Being toasted in
you were
Provo.
loving that. You were loving that.
I was loving it. I was.
Were people happy to see Bronco come back, or they view him as a?
I think they were happy. I was not able to go to the game because it was I think 2:00 in the morning when they played. But I think he was well received there.
They played in Virginia.
No, they played in Provo, but it was an 8:15 start, and
Where were you?
I was at home.
You can't watch a game at 8:15 at night.
Well, but I get home at like 2 in the morning, and I have 9:00 church, and I was speaking in church the next day. Jeff.
Let me tell you about late night shenanigans.
Oh yeah.
I saw Eternals last week, and I found a new method that works to see movies when I want to see them. This is the new thing.
You go to a late show, right?
My friends and I go to shows at 10 p.m. to watch 3-hour films, and we get home but we go on Tuesdays because that's when AMC does the $5 Tuesdays.
Hey man, I'm there.
But we get home at like 1 a.m. on a work night, but it's totally worth it. You just
I've done that several times. Yeah.
I actually recommend Eternals, by the way. I know
I want your full review, your non-spoiler review. Let's hear it, Jeff.
Hard to do non-spoiler. I appreciate that they took some chances and got a bit out of the classic MCU template as far as making the film and just the story and the characters and what it was. I thought that was good. I don't think they always succeeded in trying to, and with some of the risks they took as a film. Points for trying, but it doesn't mean they always stuck the landing, more or less. But I'll still give it like a 6.5 out of 10, maybe a 7. I will say this: if you go and see it, I put this on our Twitter. There was on like Screen Rant, some YouTube channel. This guy actually did a good breakdown of all the biblical allegory in Eternals, and he went very deep on it. And when you look at it through that lens, I mean, some of it is on the nose, and even when you watch the film, but when he went through like layer by layer about all these things, much of it's relevant to our doctrine as Latter-day Saints and this and that, especially like notions of agency and things like that. Seeing it through that lens actually made it kind of cool, and it made me appreciate the film a bit more because I thought about some of the smart work that was going on that front. It's going to be divisive because it's a movie that makes you try to think about it a little bit more. It's not just like a rollicking Marvel time. It's trying to be a thoughtful film. It doesn't always succeed.
Trying to be, right?
Trying to be.
Right.
It was fun.
Right. Where are we going next, Jeff?
Since just to knock out any other vaccine stuff, folks, we don't have to talk too much about it.
Get that out of the way.
But just quickly, sort of buried in the news about Temple Square. We talked about it before. Temple Square is coming back for the holidays in a much lower key sense, because when you see this beautiful map provided by the church that shows Temple Square and the church office building plaza, any of it covered in red is a construction area. And I don't think it's pretty much, Kurt, I don't think it's too much to say, like the only walkable space that's not a building is like south of the tabernacle, the lawn between the tabernacle and the assembly hall, and like right around there. And that's basically it. All of this, the whole half of Temple Square that's given over to the temple is blocked off. They just started tearing down the North Visitor Center last week, so that's gone. They're redoing the plaza at the COB, so that's out of commission. I think you could still go in the Joseph Smith building, for example. You can go in the line.
I was there 3 days ago. Mm-hmm.
So you can there's activities and stuff. So things are going to be happening. They've got a nice map that shows where some of the facilities will be, even if it's going to be pared down a little bit in terms of the lights and what you can do. And that's great. Glad they're able to do something. But one thing quietly mentioned that we failed to discuss is that the church is actually requiring, not encouraging, requiring anyone who's attending Temple Square festivities, indoors or outdoors, to be both vaccinated and wear a mask, which given the things the church controls, like the Tabernacle Choir, their own standards for their employees, things like that, it's interesting. But I do find it actually pretty interesting, considering they're not issuing such mandates, even in Utah, like for church services, that if you're going to come to Temple Square, you got to be vaxxed, got to wear a mask, full stop. And it says it applies to everyone who's eligible. And at this point, eligible means 5 and up. So,
and so but what are the options here on Temple Square? Because there's no Mormon Tabernacle or what
this
was
is
it
where
called?
Kurt's hedging his bets like, well, if I'm not vaccinated, am I really missing anything?
Well, I
Is there
mean,
anything to do anyway?
to me, it's like you can come stand in this courtyard by the Joseph Smith Memorial Building and look at lights from a distance.
They have experiences. Temple Square experiences include the conference center, the church history museum, the family history library,
right.
welfare square. If you want to travel, there's apparently some kind of Temple Square experience you can have there. The tabernacle, the assembly hall, the Salt Lake Temple is being marked as one of the experiences. I don't know what experience that exactly is going to be. Like, here's an I-beam. Enjoy Christmas. Church history library, Relief Society building. Have you ever been in the Relief Society building? Can the public go in there for stuff? I've never been in. I've just
definitely underrated. So, and the history of it and how it was built is fascinating. So definitely, they're running out of wall space though to put pictures of the General Relief Society presidencies. But
they got to call them for longer, which is a shame because I believe Sister Bingham will be released this April.
Has it been that long, huh?
It'll have been that long, so I'm assuming that's going to be it.
It's happening.
You got Joseph Smith building, the church administration building. What experience do you get to have the church administration building? The largely locked down building that is reserved for general authorities.
I don't think you can get in there if you try.
Why is that being included with an experience? What can you?
No, I have an appointment. I swear. No, sure you do, kid.
I mean, I'm sure you've been in there, Kurt, but I mean,
I've not been inside it. I've walked.
You've never been in the.
Why would I need to go in that building?
Because you're a heavy hitter.
For my finger wagging that they do to me sometimes.
I've been in there, Kurt. I can't have been in there. You haven't been.
What did you go in there for?
This is years before, years and years ago. My mom and I went up to Utah for what was to be the last general conference in the Tabernacle Conference.
I was there too, Jeff.
We were in the same. I mean, it might not have been the same session, but did you go to the priesthood session by any chance? Because I was there for that.
I went to the very last session in the.
We weren't there for that one, but so it was the next conference after that would be the inauguration of the conference center. So it was a fun opportunity to go up. My mom's boss at the time was Richard Worthland, who was concurrently the owner of Worthland Worldwide, a polling and market research firm. He was also the brother of Joseph B. Worthland and the brother of the other Worthland, who was an MTC president in like 2002. Anyway, he was a general authority for a spell. And so my mom and him were always friendly. So he got us some tickets to some sessions. And I went in there because he got us to just want us to come visit with them a little bit or something. So my mom and I drove down the little interlocking spiral garage ramp they have. So we drove down there. I love the parking lot because as you drive down there, it's like any old parking structure, except there's an area that's got glass walls around it which is the entryway of sorts from the garage. And it just looks funny because it's a garage. It's just a concrete parking garage. But behind the glass, it's all like nice carpeting, chintzy chairs, plush sofas and chairs, woodwork everywhere, the kind of decorating and style you would expect in one of our buildings. And there's a desk and stuff. It just looks funny because it's got glass around on all sides. So it looks like it's this little floating ornate lobby surrounded by parking spaces and stuff. I remember we went in there, we checked in, we had to, we were expected or whatever. And we had to wait. And while we were waiting, Elder Maxwell came out going to his car and he just stopped and said hi to us for a second. We were like, that was cool. And I remember right outside the door, they've got 15 parking spaces labeled for each member of the brethren. You got the first presidency.
Have their code names though?
The 12. Yes. Yes. It's all their code names.
Right.
There was just one that said Silver Fox. And that
right. Obviously. And it was large enough for a plane.
Silver Fox was not part of the fun yet, which you should know because he came in because Elders Haight and Maxwell died. That's the conference he was called. But so that was kind of funny. And it was funny. They were all Toyota Avalons. So I'm pretty sure the church had some kind of a deal with some.
I think every mission president drove that.
They were all driving
Toyota.
Yeah. So anyways, it's cool. So that's all. So you go in there and they just have offices that are nice little woody offices. And we got to visit it. And this is a much longer story about that than I intended to tell. I'm sorry about that. So
we love your stories, Jeff.
It was cool to me. It was cool to go in there and visit him, and he gave us some extra tickets. And my mom's uncle was also in the 70 at the time, so we scored different tickets and stuff. I got to go to lunch where the general authorities, you would have lunch between sessions. It's kind of fun.
Wow, you're like church royalty, Jeff. You're all connected, and
I'm more like Icarus. I flew far too close to the sun and never gotten there since. Anyway, so folks, go to Temple Square for Christmas. They also included the Brigham Young Historic Park and the Young Family Cemetery. So
Jeff,
wear a mask. I don't think they're enforcing anything, by the way. I think they're just telling you have to be that.
Right. Yes. Yeah. So Jeff, imagine you're sitting in zone conference there in Spain. Okay.
Do I have to?
Did you have good zone conferences on your mission? I mean,
yeah, by and large.
Were they lively? You're engaging, right? Well,
I loved them. President Bowen would give PowerPoint presentations. It was awesome.
Is he still in the 70?
He was
like a young buck when he got
keep
called
waiting for him to get up there in the 12 before he ages out.
Yeah, come on.
We're running out of time.
And then you get more tickets and go to the administration building more often, right? So, Jeff, 2 gunmen robbed 70 missionaries.
Story's crazy.
On Friday, kicking or hitting some of them and assaulting the mission president and his wife, a church spokesman said. The incident happened during a zone conference of the Mexico Torreon mission in Torreon. The robbers entered the church meeting house with guns and a knife and demanded cell phones, tablets, and wallets from 13 sisters and 57 elders.
Jeez.
Local police were immediately called after the men fled the scene, and no one needed additional medical care.
Also, no one needs additional Medicare.
Right. Sorry. All right. And
political people.
This said Sam Penrod. I don't read well. A church counselor is traveling from Mexico City to assist with emotional needs, and other counseling options are also being made available. Parents are being contacted by the church, and missionaries are being encouraged to contact their families. So, Jeff, I just know there's that elder or two who's just like sitting there thinking, I think I can take him. I think I can take him. And the mission president just probably praying that no missionary tries anything funny. But anyways, that's a crazy story.
I used to have dreams in high school that like my school was taken over by terrorists, and I somehow hid in the ductwork and I die-harded the whole thing somehow.
Oh my goodness.
All the more complicated because unlike schools in colder climates where it's like a building,
right?
I went to school in California, low slung, spread out, separate buildings, outdoor entrances to all of them. You don't have hallways or anything. It's just. I'm just glad they're okay. Cannot.
That could have gone sour real fast.
And they did say like, although everyone is physically okay, the church is bringing in its counselor and other professionals, because I have to imagine there is absolutely the potential for some post-traumatic stress from that experience. I just can't.
And I just think about like those brand new missionaries who are just like trying to cope with this new life, with being in different countries, speaking a different language, and then this happens. It's like, man, you just can't win. But
then their naysayer friends are like, "See, told you, should have stayed here." Worked at an MLM with me, buddy.
That's right.
And Torreon even had a temple announced in April. That's adversity, my friend.
Man,
they get a temple and then they get robbed. That's a crazy story. This was all over the news too. I mean, I don't think we see tragedy. Thankfully, this wasn't like, this was traumatizing, but not fully tragic because everyone is safe, ostensibly so at least. But, we always get stories about these tragedies and accidents and things that happen to missionaries, but I've never seen anything quite at this scale. Armed gunmen just storming a zone conference like this. That's just, it's not the only incident, I believe. What's that famous story? Wasn't it when President Nelson was in the 12? Or was it even earlier than that? He was like,
I interviewed
he was in Mozambique or something like that. Right?
President Packard and his wife. I've interviewed them. And Sister Packard's her arm got broken, and they were like under assault, and she like snuck out and called for help. And it's crazy.
So Sister Packard, like President Packer's daughter?
Packard.
Who's Packard? That's not a name. It's Packer.
No, the mission president was President Packard.
No, it's Boyd K. Packer.
Boyd K. had nothing to do with this incident.
But this happened back in was it the 80s or something, or the 90s?
No, it was the 90s, I'm pretty sure, or even maybe early 2000s. So
that's a crazy story. Speaking of President Bowen, my mission president, when he was a missionary in Chile, and he was there during the Pinochet regime, and he was actually kidnapped when he was a missionary.
What?
Yeah.
Wow, that guy needs a memoir.
He'd tell us that. I'm surprised he hasn't written one yet. He worked in insurance.
He's waiting for you to call. Yeah, there's going to be a big gap of 30 years of just insurance sales, right?
Just dominating the insurance landscape of Idaho Falls. Booyah!
Speaking of, I mean, your tangents are good here, but I'm actually almost done with President Ballard's biography. I know you appreciate a good biography, Jeff. You picked that one up yet?
No, I'm still reading the first chapter of the one about Eugene, England that you sent me.
Oh yeah, we gotta talk. Jeff, come on, man.
Apologize.
Oh man,
I really
you'll like
apologize.
that one. That
I
one
just
is.
I got so swept up in the Fresh Prince, and it just took
Is that
priority.
streaming somewhere?
Yeah, it's on HBO Max.
Okay, so hey, at least you're honest, Jeff. So,
but that's over now. I have no excuse. I have no excuse other than
well, my wife and I are currently going through Seinfeld, and
I just started doing some Seinfeld again too.
Did you? Man, those early episodes were rough. I mean, they did not know what they were doing.
I think it gets decent pretty quickly, but the first
Season
episode,
3, it picks up.
The first episode of the pilot is like before they even brought on Elaine as a character. You're just like, oh, this is not.
Yeah, this is
funny at all.
Surprised it survived. So.
Well, I could spare you some interesting trivia about Seinfeld, but because the first season's only like 4 episodes long.
Yeah, isn't it like a pilot season or something?
No, so it got a pilot, and then executives didn't know what to do with it. It tested poorly. They still aired it, and it did okay in terms of ratings, but no one knew quite what to do with it. But a couple of execs really believed in it, and even tried to like lower fees and find ways to finance it because they thought they had something. And so they secured an order after that for a season of 4 episodes, which at the time, and I think still set a record for a sitcom for the lowest episode order for a season in like television history. 4 episodes for a whole season. So that's all they had for that. And then they only gave them like 7 or 8 for season 2, and it does get better with season.
Yeah, season 3 it picks up because at first I'm telling my wife like it gets better. I promise.
Anyway. Actually, my real excuse for not reading the book is the Great British Baking Show. We're almost done with the season, but
I think Jeff's taking some truth serum here. He's giving it all.
This is what happens. Monday night I twim, cool. Tuesday night, we'll see how things go. Maybe I have some free time, but I've always got to get caught up on Relative Race, which is almost over. So I might give my time to that.
Okay. All right.
Wednesday, I'm not exactly sure. Thursday, I don't know what happens. Sometimes I'm going to see movies at 11 p.m. at night. So who knows? Friday, the baking show happens. That's a thing. And then by Saturday, I'm exhausted, and I've got to go to Bishopric meeting at 7 a.m. So on Sunday. So what can I do?
How do you do it?
I don't. That's the thing. I don't.
We'll at least get through chapter 2 by the next time we talk. Okay, Jeff?
It's just like the pages are really dense. Like there's a lot of words. This isn't like Harry Potter. It's like it takes me a long time to read one. This is like reading Rough Stone Rolling all over again. I'm just like, how do I do this?
Yeah.
How do I?
Well, you read it on a Kindle like I did, and then you don't realize how long the book is.
You asked me how I wanted it, and I said Kindle is fine, and that's. But then you sent me a hard copy.
No, you said hard copy, or I don't know what. Anyways,
it's right here, man.
There it is.
I have a Kindle. It's right here.
Right there.
It's all good. Interesting piece out of By Common Consent. We're leading into Thanksgiving next week in the United States. Not to disrespect our Canadian listeners who have already had their fun, but it's called Thanksgiving on the Tower of Rameumptom. Michael Austin often writes very good pieces. I enjoy his writing style and the way things he researches. I love the way he lays the groundwork too. He reminds us as we read in Alma 31, the story of Rameumptom when they visit the Zoramites in the land of Antionum, right? And how basically it's like a dream team of missionaries. Like you said, you really step back and forget who all went on this trip, this outreach. And when you think about it, it was because the Zoramites, even politically, were at risk of sort of severing ties with the Nephites and allying themselves with the Lamanites. So like geopolitically, this was also bad, to say nothing of spiritually. So they're like, all right, we're sending a delegation more or less to see what's going on with the Zoramites. I mean, many of you, I'm assuming, have read Alma 31, but think about who goes. You got Alma, Amulek. I love that Zeezrum's there only because, it's a callback to chapters way earlier in the book when Zeezrum has his experience and converts. And usually in the scriptures, it's like, well, that was nice. Glad he had his positive experience. I just like that he's still kicking around. It's kind of like the same thing like when, what's his face? The other Ammon? The guy who chases King Noah, but then he gets killed later on by somebody else. You know what I'm talking about?
Isn't that Ammon?
Is it also another Ammon? Maybe it is. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But Zeezrum shows up, 2 of Alma's sons, and then 3 of the sons of Mosiah show up. This is like a murderer's row of missionaries who are going up there to see what's going on. I just love remembering how serious of a mission this was. Like, all right, we're sending the experienced This is legit, folks. What I'm saying is we're not setting the second quorum of the 70 here. This is presidency of the 70 and above, people. We are getting in there to make this happen. And so if many of you know the story, the Zoramites famously built Rameumptom, their great tower, where all of them they waited in line, stood up there one by one, walked to the top of the tower, said their prayer where they talked about how grateful they were. Essentially, they were better than everybody else and that they were a chosen people, that they were going to be saved. They didn't let poor people in the church because wealth was a sign of righteousness. So they were all about prosperity doctrine, the Zoramites. Mm-hmm. And so the piece basically, he explains a lot of this, which we already know, but for the Zoramites, life was zero sum in that sense. Wealth is a comparative value. It's only possible if some people don't have it, more or less. Michael Austin cautions us that it's also very easy for us in our own testimonies to think about the fact that, let's say here in the United States, his example is that he was blessed to live in the only truly free country in the world, and that he was given the gift of belonging to the only true church on the face of the earth. Now, that's true as far as doctrine goes, but you can see how that can slip into a Zoramite mentality. I am so thankful that I have been born into the best place in the world, and I'm in the only true church, and I wasn't born into some bad country, and I'm not born into some bad apostate church. I am extremely blessed. But he doesn't just stress on that. He just basically stresses the point of, is your gratitude dependent on pushing someone else down in order to get there, or is our gratitude also all for show? I remember the Give Thanks campaign last year was great, but we saw how we saw potentially how easily that could have become something where it's you're saying how thankful you are, but it's I'm so thankful for all my Insta followers, I'm so thankful. At some point you're thankful for stuff that's trying to set you apart to look good in a sense. And so he says one way maybe we can get around that as well is to also not just stress the things we're thankful for that are more exclusive, which I think there's nothing wrong with that. I am very thankful. I try to teach my kids this. I'm thankful that I have shelter. I'm thankful that I have potable water. I'm thankful that I have basic needs met. It's not because I am better or more blessed than anybody else. I'm just super thankful I don't live in an environment where it's an issue that I can't even just drink water from my tap. And that's not to say that's just an American thing. We know there's places in our own country where that's a problem, right? That's a thing. I'm thankful for that stuff, but also I can be thankful for things that aren't particular, that are everyday stuff that everybody has. I can be there's a poem he reads from the poet Charles Reznikoff called Te Deum, it says, not because of victories I sing, having none, but for the common sunshine, the breeze, the largesse of the spring, not for victory, but for the day's work done, as well as I was able, not for a seat upon the die, but at the common, or the dais, but at the common table. Anyway, I like the idea.
Safe to say that just being grateful for things that everybody gets that are awesome,
that's also a good thing to be thankful for.
The grace of Jesus Christ, and
right? Be thankful for the grace of Jesus. Be thankful, if you have the gospel, and be thankful for it. But obviously, don't take it to the length of the Zoramites and be thankful you are the chosen one.
Oh yeah.
And others are hosed because they're not, right? But yeah, be thankful. Anyways, the piece is good. I'm not doing it justice from this discussion. And Kurt didn't read it, so it's really just this is all we're gonna say about it.
Not my style, Jeff. Not my style. But
that wasn't your style.
I don't.
What does that mean?
I'm just saying that that's just not one of on the. I don't peruse that site very much.
What Kurt's trying to say is reading by common consent is beneath him. It is not his style.
Jeff said it. Okay, he's just picking up what I'm laying down.
And I don't see you saying no.
So let's talk about Alex Boye.
That's a phrase I really rarely like to hear. But okay, what's up?
What? Let's talk about Alex Boye.
I'm not on Team Boye, but it's fine. This is okay.
He recently he posted on, was this Instagram or something, but on social media, sharing an experience where he.
This was actually on. Sorry, this was on LinkedIn.
Oh, LinkedIn.
He shared this.
Oh, yeah. There you go. He's networking. He said, I recently lost a fairly big TV contract because after doing a background check on me, they saw a past interview where I talked openly about a pornography problem that I had almost 20 years ago, where I talked about how I battled it and succeeded. It was one of the toughest, loneliest, soul-wrenching battles I've ever been through. He kind of goes on to say that, rejection is only temporary, people. Get up, move on. Your tribe is always looking for you. So, and you read some of the comments, Jeff, and said, I mean, because I'm wondering what type, especially in 2021, what type of organization would even discriminate against such past behavior?
Yeah, that's the question, right? And there are many people who are just saying, like, please don't be BYU TV. Please
Yeah.
don't be BYU TV. Please don't be BYU TV.
Yes, very interesting. But I appreciate Alex putting this out there and just mentioning that there's a struggle he had, and hopefully more people can feel comfortable not only talking about past struggles but even current struggles, and just find community and help to get through it all. So,
Kurt, in your experiences, both as a judge in Israel, as an executive in a stake, and also, but just like doing leading saints,
uh,
I'm not always being sarcastic. I'm serious. Like,
okay.
given the experiences you've had,
Yes.
where do you think the line is on being public about past transgressions and issues, in as much as they can be used, for good, as cautionary tales or as positive experiences of how to come out of stuff, but at the same time we don't like to dwell on the past and things that are repented of. Like, do you have an opinion about that? Like, if we should be more open about it, if we're just right, if I don't know, what do you think?
Well, the way I see it is that if you can't articulate your brokenness, you can't articulate Jesus. Like
You've
there,
rehearsed that line before, haven't you?
it,
Is that in the book? Because that's a good line.
that's not.
Okay.
But this is the reality is that we have a very difficult time talking about how we're broken and in need of the grace of Jesus Christ. And when we avoid that, we also avoid talking about the redemptive power of Jesus Christ, right? And so, sitting in a room where this happened just yesterday at an elders quorum, somebody mentioned their time in the addiction recovery um, program, and another individual talked about the several years outside the church and how that impacted. They didn't go into a lot of details, but it sort of breaks my heart when people hesitate or feel like they can't be open and share about that,
Yeah.
and especially leaders, because that's like a connection point for individuals. So I think rarely is it, in my opinion, would it be inappropriate to not share, right? I mean, maybe if you're going to the specific details of something that's sort of like, wow, we didn't need to know, those things. But we do
Yeah.
need to create a place that's common for individuals to talk about. I was deeply broken. I was caught up in this addiction. I experienced deep trauma as a child that led me into more addiction and led me away from the gospel or whatever, and how they came through that. But yeah, does that help?
No, it does. I mean, I
Okay.
would I would love to be. Is it, speaking of elders quorum? Yeah, like in an elders, I think elders quorum is a really powerful place for that. Just I don't know if this is speaking just as a man who goes to elders quorum compared to an environment like Sunday school or something like
Uh-huh.
that. But I think sometimes we struggle as brethren to be kind of emotionally open with one another in that kind of way, and spiritually for that matter too. I think that could be. I would love to be in a meeting like
Because here's
that.
the thing, Jeff. Let me just throw this out there question, and I'm curious of your answer. In an average, say there's an average elders quorum, what percentage of them have looked at pornography in the
One
last
hundred
month?
percent. Oh, I say like, oh, if you're going to say ever,
And, yeah, sure,
no,
ever.
just
Yeah,
as a quick aside. I am convinced if a man tells you he has never seen pornography and he has never masturbated, he is lying to you, straight up. I don't think that. I'm just telling
yeah,
you, and it's
okay.
like we deal with it, and we're adults, and we deal with it. And we follow Christ, and we get better. That's just an aside, okay? But that's one thing. So,
In the
how
last
many
month, would you
in the
say?
last month? That's really tough because I just don't know. I mean, I wonder, and sometimes I even wonder if it's not as bad as it used to be because we don't hear about it like nonstop in general conference like we did 10
Hmm.
years ago when it
Hmm.
was sort of the cause du jour. Uh, I don't know. If it's in the past month, I'd say it's probably 15% of the quorum, maybe.
Yeah.
But I have nothing to base that off
Right,
of.
right.
Nothing
And
at
I
all.
don't necessarily have, there's no statistics per se on this, but I would say close to 35 to 40%. And the reality is, if somebody
But you
isn't,
also have no way to back that up, or is that what you just said? So we're both
well,
just
that's just pulling a number out. I'm not saying
you
that
guys.
I'm
Let's
pulling
meet in
that
the
from a
middle. Let's meet in the
research.
middle. 22%.
Okay, there it is.
All right.
But the
There we go.
reality is that if an individual who's struggling with this in on their own in quiet, and they're trying to overcome it by themselves, which typically does not work. They will they'll feel like these aren't my people. Like they don't struggle like I struggle. So maybe there's not a place for me here. And so the more that people talk about their brokenness and whatnot, then that's going to create a safer space to do that. And I realize there's,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's something that just can't start, next Sunday. Like, oh, I'm just going to do it, because it has to be a safe place, and that's sometimes hard to orchestrate. But
do you? This is way out there. Do you ever wonder if the dynamic of elders quorum, since we're specifically talking about elders quorum, is? Do you feel like having combined elders quorum with the high priests is an inhibitor for that? Like, do you think we'd be more likely to be open if elders quorum were largely more of your own demographic age-wise? I don't know if that makes any sense, at all. But I wonder. Like, I've been in some meetings where it's fine, everything's mostly fine, but I look around, I'm like, I can't imagine us getting to that level, because it feels like it's just people operating on different planes. And why would some of these younger guys who might have genuine things that they want to be open about be talking about it with the 60-year-old high priests who are part of the quorum, who just like don't? I don't know. It's not like there's not togetherness or cohesion. I sometimes wonder socially if
yeah, possibly. I would say, generally speaking, just that combination of the high priest and elders, I don't think has necessarily inhibited it anymore. I think it's simply that we've never seen it modeled. We don't know how that looks, where individuals who, after, several meetings with their bishop and relapses, then they finally go to like an addiction recovery program, and they say like, oh, I see how this is done. But rarely does the average church member go see how that's modeled. And so they don't know how to do it when it's, they don't know how to, offer safety for that person, of saying, wow, thank you for sharing that. It's more of like, okay, is he done talking? I'm just going to stare at the carpet, and hopefully we move on. Right.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's inhibited it, because we've never learned how to do it in the first place.
Fair enough. Thanks, Kurt. Good thoughts. See, I knew you'd have a good thought. This is the this stuff matters a lot more to me than, for example, the Tabernacle Choir's Christmas plan.
Let's talk about that, Jeff.
They have a Christmas plan, folks. Real quick, this is mostly just a quick notice for you. There will still not be a Tabernacle Choir Christmas concert. There wasn't one last year.
Or in person, right?
Not in person. But this year they're going to do a concert, but it's going to be aired on PBS on December 13th. PBS will air 20 years of Christmas with the Tabernacle Choir, which I'm hoping means just celebrating the fact that they've done it for 20 years, not like a clip show that shows clips from the past 20 years and every now and then
I'd say expect a clip show.
I don't like clip shows. They are a waste of airtime. It's when you can't. Anyway, it's like when sitcoms do the clip show every season. You're like, oh, geez, why am I? You just had to fill this. You just had to anyway. But because of that, so just a broadcast. It'll still originate from the conference center. They'll still have guests too, which is terrific. They're going to have Megan Hilty and Neil McDonough, who I was telling Kurt beforehand is a stand-up guy. So I'm glad to see him involved in this. If you ever look up the name, you've seen him. He's an actor. He's like a character actor. He's been around for 20, 30 years doing all kinds of stuff. He's always been around. So that's 2021. Now you might be thinking, well, in 2022, things are going to get better, right? Right. We're gonna beat this COVID thing. We're gonna get it so it's down to a non-pandemic level, a nuisance like the flu, where we can get there. Let's all hope and pray and take actions accordingly. But lest you think a year from now things will be hunky-dory, the church is not taking any chances, and the 2022 Christmas program is actually going to be pre-recorded. They are going to be convening. Right? I'm correct in that, right? So, didn't we read this before? Why am I not seeing it right?
Yeah,
yes, choir leaders also detail Friday. The choirs plan to record the 2022 iteration of their annual Christmas concert during several closed taping sessions next month. And sorry, it's the 2022 program that'll have Megan Hilty and Neil McDonough. Sorry about that.
Because next year they need something to broadcast on TV. They always broadcast last year's event, and so this way they'll have it ready to go, right?
Yeah. But basically this means it's just going to be another PBS special in 2022. We are not diving in and being like, all right, we can do it in person again. Maybe we'll get lucky and they'll have recorded it and they'll still say, guys,
I would guess that
stuff's okay. Let's do it. Let's do the show live.
I would guess in Christmas of 2022, they will do an additional in-person Christmas concert and then
They
show
might.
this one on TV because
They might.
that's
I hope
probably
so.
their contract with PBS. Is like, we need a Christmas concert that we can broadcast every year.
It is fun doing Christmas concert recordings when it's well out of season. Like years ago when I went to that Gladys Knight Christmas special taping for BYU TV, they did it here in DC because it was like September. It was like early September, and I'm at the Lincoln Theater, but the theater's all done up Christmassy. You just forget when you watch pre-recorded Christmas content that the people who did this, they did it months ago when we
Right.
were still celebrating Labor Day. But so everyone's just faking it, being in the spirit, but it's a good time. Another quick one I'm going to throw at you here. FamilySearch is a wonderful service, and they have announced some changes to how you can make temple ordinance reservations. If you're active in FamilySearch, you know that despite it being pushed as something everyone can use, which they can, it's also intertwined with church records nicely, and you can actually print temple reserve names for the temple and print cards and things along those lines in order to do temple work for our beloved dearly departed. So Kurt, I don't know if you've ever experienced this, but I sure have. When you're in FamilySearch, you find some cool family names. Somebody you're like, I could do this. I could take this name to the temple. And then it's got a little hold on it. And it's some rando relative you've never heard of. And you start fishing around like, who is this person? And you see this constantly where you just can't reserve names because somebody else just grabs it. If a name is there, it's a free for all. Anybody can just take a name and decide to do it. And you can't just say, no, but that was for me. I wanted to do that because it's meaningful, and they might be, it's meaningful to me. So they've announced that they are going to set a maximum amount of reservations per user, 300 rows of reservations per user.
That seems kind of high.
Still seems very generous to me. Right. I mean, unless you're, especially if you're doing some of the higher level ordinances that are one by one kind of thing. I mean, if you're doing baptisms, I guess you could crank through those if you were pretty diligent over the course of the year.
Even if you were retired and you were going to the temple, like twice a month, once a week, maybe? I mean,
once a week would be 52 times a year.
Right. So, it still takes a while to get through that as you're.
Are you gonna do 6 endowment sessions a week?
Right.
Well, I don't know. So I agree it is also higher, but part of it is because they are encouraging people to use the resources they have to do their ancestors' temple work in a timely manner. What happens is if you don't use the reservation in a year, it goes back to the open pool and somebody else can grab it, which is a lot of fun. It's just like trying to get, the new OLED Nintendo Switch or any number of video cards. It's just you're waiting there, just waiting for something to show up, and then you can grab that name. So that's the main change. They're limiting how many you can take, and otherwise they're going to be available for other people. I think it's a good change. I mean, yeah, I've seen people just hold on to names for a long time and never do anything with them, and it's kind of like, well, I would like to do something with this name, if you please, but they don't care.
That's right.
They never care, Kurt.
They don't. What else we got? Sadly, to report that the South Korea temple president passed away. Let's see. He was early 70s, 71 years old. President Cheon Kim, Seoul Korea temple president, on October 29th is when he died. He and his wife had served as temple president and matron since November of 2019. And I don't know if it gives any more details other than some of his personal history, but lost another good one.
Yeah. It doesn't even mention cause of death or anything like that, which is their business, of course, but curious minds like to know. Do you know who Jorge Cocco is?
Of course I do. There, right on my wall here is a Jorge Cocco. No, it's not original, but
Jorge Cocco.
Yeah, he's great.
If you don't know Jorge Cocco, he's an Argentinian artist. He's a convert to the church. He does. It's not cubism necessarily, but he has a singular take on the way he does his art. I love his art. I think his art's great. Yeah. It's been featured in some church manuals more in recent years, which is terrific. I'm glad to see us embracing artwork that is also kind of outside of the what we expect to see in a lot of church things. Right? It's good. I was blanking on the term. Greg, what's his face? You know what I mean?
Greg Olson, Jeff.
The all-star types, which are beautiful paintings as well.
Yeah.
So I like Jorge Cocco's style. The Daily Mail kind of mentions this. So there was some religious controversy a couple of years ago because, where was this? It was last year. America's Oregon Catholic Press magazine apologized because it used one of Cocco's images on the cover, which was an image of the angel Moroni, and nobody knew what it was.
It's like, that's a cool looking angel.
And so they're like, this is not Catholicism. And they were mad about it, which I guess is fair. I mean,
where's the wings?
If we published our magazine and it had some kind of like very, Sacred Heart of Jesus type thing on it, we might be a little, what's going on with that? So
yeah,
understandably upset. But his artwork is now going to be featured on holiday stamps in the UK this year, I believe. Yes, the Royal Mail. So this year's Royal Mail stamps. Of course, this is a Daily Mail article, which I could have found a different source, but whatever. Daily Mail is the Daily Mail. Okay, so it goes out of its way to be like, this year's person is someone who sparked religious controversy. I don't think he's the one who chose to put his image on a Catholic magazine. Isn't it the Oregon Catholic Press that sparked controversy by not vetting what it did?
Someone said, hey, we'll send you a check for your art. He said, great. Thank you.
Yeah, and he was like, that's super dynamite. Anyways, I think his stuff's great. I also want to commend, though, the person in the comments. There's very few comments. Well, there's 100 comments. Most people say it's beautiful. This is really cool. Glad they're using them on the stamps. Nice choice. But I do like the folks who are like, the church is not the Mormons, by the way. That's a nickname. It's never the one they chose. They're the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. It would be good if that was corrected. It's also funny in that comment because Latter-day is not hyphenated, nor does it have a lowercase d, but that's okay. We'll give them a pass. I love our people flooding to the comment section to be like, don't call it the Mormon church. We're not Mormons. We just get in there, man. We get in there.
Right, that's right. Fixing the world through Facebook or wherever it was. So.
Anyway, I feel great about our week. How do you feel about our week, Kurt?
Oh, man. I mean, we've had worse, we've had better, but I'll take it.
This is a decidedly average episode. Yes.
With a decidedly average co-host. Happy to be here, Jeff.
I thought you were talking about me, which is absolutely fair.
No, I'm the co-host. You're the host.
No, I think we're co-hosts.
It's true. It's true.
We're equals, man. This is not a subsidiary relationship or anything like that. You're not answering to me or I answering to you. I kind of do answer.
You can edit anything I say. So
I won't, though. This show is almost always edit free, people.
Yeah, because we've been talking for 90 minutes, and look at how long this episode is. Now you people know. So,
well, that's mostly because I had to go take care of kids on the toilet. We're about to record, and I have two sons who run downstairs. Dad, I have to do the bathroom, and one of them can take care of himself, and then the other one runs down and says the same thing. I'm like, okay. And so Kurt and I are talking. I'm just waiting to hear yelling from above me. All done.
Nice.
You've all been there. Those of you with the children have been there. Anyway, folks, thanks for tuning in this week. Big thanks to our Patreon supporters. Patreon.com/thisweekinmormons. You can pledge $25 a month, and in so doing, you will be the pledge the most of anyone in the history of this show. So that's what I'm asking for this week because it's Thanksgiving, and this is my Rammy-umptum. Give me $25 a month.
And Jeff will be grateful for it.
Everyone, update your pledges. All right. But thanks for that, folks. And for all of you who join us everywhere else where we get podcasts, we truly appreciate it. Can't do the show without you. Truly can't, because you're the ones listening. And that's why we keep doing it. If you fail to listen, then it becomes a vanity exercise. And that's no fun for anybody. So also, please go to leadingsaints.com. Kurt's doing terrific work over there.
Yeah, it'll get you there.
I'm sorry, I forgot. You only did the nonprofit thing like 5 years ago or longer at this point. It's been a while, hasn't it?
It's been 2016 was 501c3. So boom.
Like so go to leadingsaints.org, download the Leading Saints podcast. You'll find it wherever you get podcasts because it has a very garish logo, and you'll appreciate it.
I'm improving that.
I'm just kidding. I've kind of warmed up to it.
Of course, yeah.
It's better than my logo, which has the word Mormon and a picture of Moroni. It's just like outdated everything.
They're going to shut you down, Jeff.
They'll never take me alive.
This week in Zion. That's what we're going for, right, Jeff?
Twiz?
Yeah, man. That'd be awesome. Twiz Nation. And you could eat.
It's the worst sounding thing I've
Twizzlers could sponsor you.
But I'm a Red Vines kind of guy. I can't do it. Sorry.
All right.
Sorry. All right. This is digressing. Everybody, thank you for being here. Kurt, I love you very much. Thanks for taking the time.
Adios.
Appreciate it. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Talk to you next week. See you later. Bye-bye.